So it's lesson 8, part 2 of enterprise computing. We've got our shopping cart set up so we can browse. We want to add a couple things to it. We should add some currency formatting here. So we can easily do that in our view. We'll just wrap our album price in a string format with our .NET currency format. So we can use string.format. And we'll use Microsoft's currency format. That should give us a $sign. I think. So notice my session timed out, my cart's gone. I'm actually logged in. So I'll shop. Now I should be able to shop and have my cart persist. Okay, so I can add a few items to my cart. And they're formatted as currency. Now we want to show the cart total, as Roman mentioned before the break. So we can run a quick calculation in our controller method before we return the view. We'll calculate the total and we can use the view bag to pass that value from the controller to the view. Then we can maybe render it down here in a footer row. So we'll go back to our controller. So in here, we want to calculate the cart total. Now we can actually do this pretty efficiently. So what we want to do is take our cart items, and we basically need to do two math operations at once, right? We need to take each item and multiply the quantity, the count, by the price. And then we need to sum all those things together. So normally we would probably use a loop and keep a running total, which we can do. You know, we could loop through for each item in cart items, multiply the count times the price, and then increment that onto a running total. Because Microsoft gives us access to this called link query syntax, language independent network query, we could actually do this operation all in one command. So we basically first do the multiplication, and then we simply sum those results all together. So we can chain, just kind of like we did previously, where we did an order by and a then by. We can chain multiple methods together in our link queries. So that's what we're going to do. So I'll just create a variable called, actually, sorry, I guess it should be a decimal. Cart total. We're going to query our cart items. We're going to select and cast the count. We're going to do this part first, so I'll put that all in brackets. And then we can sum the whole thing. So nothing wrong with using a loop, performing the math one item at a time, and keeping a running total. This is just a more efficient way of doing the same thing. So for each item, this runs first, and then it just totals them. So now we can just stick that in the view bag, and then we can render it at the bottom of our cart. So on the view, we'll just want to add this into the footer of our table and also use that currency formatting. The only thing I'm not entirely sure is what will happen if our cart is empty. So we come to the site, we may have to deal with the possibility of it being empty. We'll see. We're not displaying it yet. I want to see what happens if there's nothing in the cart, if this code is going to crash as we've written it. If so, there's a fix. Right. So we can't because we have a null value. So the way we can fix this, if we put in a question mark here and here, that'll take care of the possibility of nulls. Right? Those parameters may not get filled. So I'll just put in a comment here that those question marks indicate that value might be a null. So I'll build again. So that fixes our error. So it's probably good to write it first without it so we can see the importance of that question mark. Now over here I'm logged in, so my cart should persist, which it does, even after a build. So now we want to display this, so we can go back to our shopping cart index. So after our loop, we want now a footer row. We'll have our first two columns are going to be blank. So let's display the cart total here and also format it as currency. I hate the syntax. I really wish they would make it simpler. In a much previous version, all you had to do was take whatever value and pass it to the function called format currency, which was a lot easier. So we'll take the view bag, pass it through the string formatting. So now it shows up down here. I'm going to go back and just add one more item. I'm going to add my first album again. So you can see it increments the count. Now, formatting wise, typically price columns are right aligned, right? Because it's easier to kind of do the math in your head. These are not, these are left aligned. So I'm going to right align these columns here. So in my third column for each one, I'll add a class of text-right, both my heading, the column in the loop, as well as the column in the footer row. So all of those will be aligned to the right. So the decimal points in my total line up with the decimal points in all the individual rows. So that looks better, I think. So now we want to add one more column onto this table. We want the ability to remove from cart. I'll put in a heading that says actions. We'll put in remove buttons in the rows and a checkout button in the footer. We'll create a button that says remove. It's going to call a method called remove from cart in our shopping cart controller. What value are we going to need to pass to this method in order to remove this one album from the cart? What information do we need in the controller?
Album ID?
Yeah, we need to know which album are we removing. If there's 10 albums in the cart, which one do we replace? So just like on our add to cart, we'll set up an album ID parameter. And it's a.album ID is the value. And again, we'll add a bootstrap class on here. We'll use our default button template. So we should have buttons that say remove, and each one will pass in the appropriate album ID. I also want a button down in the footer. For now, it'll generate a 404 error, but we'll add on next week. So let's add another HTML action link. This one will say checkout. And we'll call the checkout method. In this one, we don't need any parameters passed to the checkout method. So our parameters, our root values is null. And the last thing, again, let's add the same class on there. I think you can see everything. It's lines 29, 30, and 38, 39 are our two buttons. So if we want to check this out, looks kind of like this now. We get a remove button. Each one, as I mouse over it, you can see the album ID in the status bar. So first button says album ID 609. Second one is album ID 610. Right now, all of these buttons will just generate a 404 because we have neither a remove from cart or a checkout method yet. So we won't really worry about updating quantities. I'm just going to leave that out of this project. Be easy enough to do. We could render these as text boxes and write a update button if you wanted, and we'd need an update method. For now, we'll just make it, you can add and you can remove. So now we need, in the controller, we need this method, which shouldn't be too complicated. So we'll go back to our controller. Again, we'll pass in an album ID. We don't need a view for this, much like add. We just want to update the database and reload the cart page. Now, the way remove works with Entity Framework is a little bit odd. We can't just delete an item and pass in a where clause. We actually have to first select the object or objects we want and then remove them. So it's kind of a two-step process, not terribly efficient in my view, but that's how it works. So we need to use this album ID to select this album from the current cart only, right? We don't want to delete it for everybody, only for this particular user. So the first thing we'll need is, again, we'll need to get the cart ID and store it in a variable. We'll get the current cart. And we probably, actually, we may not need this call, because now that I think about it, if there is no cart ID, there will be no items to display and they can't click remove. So I'm not sure we really need to call get cart ID. Could probably take it out. Don't think that matters. So we're going to call single or default because there should only be one match. So our c.cart ID is equal to our current cart ID. And our album ID is equal to our album ID parameter. So we're going to get the selected album from the current cart.
I didn't go for like a month. This guy was in my class in my first semester.
So we just need to remove this object from the collection, call save changes, and reload the index view. So this will remove it. Now, in the tutorial that's online from Microsoft, they actually use Ajax to do the removal. So the entire cart doesn't refresh. It just removes that line and updates the total. So it uses Ajax and some jQuery. If you want to see how to do that, the tutorial link is in the tools and resources. You can go down to the delete the shopping cart section in there and you can see how to do that. I'll just remove it from the server and reload the index view. So let's build here. Again, if you're not logged in, your cart is going to be wiped out. So you're going to need to put items back in your cart in order to try this. I'll stay in my Chrome browser. I'm still logged in with my Google account. We waited for you, but I could only wait so long. So now if I remove, it should happen pretty quickly. The page should just reload. Hopefully this is gone and our total gets modified. All right, so now if I remove again. Now there is one more thing we should do with this. What should we do whenever we have a delete of any kind of data? Yeah, particularly when people are using mobile devices, right? It's really easy to tap the wrong thing. So what we want on our remove button, we've got one HTML attribute here, which is a class, but we can add additional HTML attributes into that list. So I haven't tried it this way before, but let's, so our first one is a class. I think our second HTML attribute we can set is on click. And we can write a function here that will run when the link is clicked. So we want a return statement, and we want to use JavaScript has any, well, does anybody know what the JavaScript method we want to use is that will pop up a modal window with an OK and a cancel button? Close. Close. It's like an alert, except an alert only has an OK button, right? So we have no way to stop the operation. It just props up a message, but as soon as you click OK, it's going to fire anyway. We want a message like an alert, but instead of just an OK, it also has a cancel. You're close, Sean, real close. It's called confirm. The method's called confirm. But it's important you put return in front of it. Otherwise, the message comes up, but the link will still fire whether you click OK or cancel, right? The cancel returns a false, so our method call needs to return. Confirm, and then we just put in a message here. As so single quote, our message goes in single quotes, but the whole statement is in double quotes. So we can try this again. I've emptied my cart. I got to put something back in the cart, and then we can try to remove it and see if our confirmation works. We may have to play with this a little bit. Add a few items to my cart. So we get this. If we click cancel, nothing should happen. Good. And then it calls the method. So don't forget, the most common mistake here is not having that return command. If you don't have return, your link is gonna, your delete's gonna run even if you click cancel. So that return is critical to interpret the result of the confirm method because it returns a true or false. Okay. Put something else in there. Okay, so I think our cart's actually in pretty good shape here. We can add, we can remove, we can view the contents of the cart, and we can shop either as a logged in user with an existing account or as an anonymous user. We can do any of these things. Just trying to think if there was anything else. I think we've actually done most of, or pretty much everything I wanted to do today was to get this set up. So we've got our total. Yeah, we could show the thumbnail. Sure, we could do that in our table. So in this row, we could probably think about it. We put in a paragraph tag here. So we could use at a dot album dot Yep, alt equals. And we probably just should set a size for it. So it's not too large. Well, actually, it's not too bad. We'll just maybe say, we'll set it as 75. Sure, so let's see what that's like. Yeah, that's not too bad. Right, so we get the title. Often we get a thumbnail picture of the image, for example. Okay. So the nice thing is, so I'm in here in Chrome. I'm going to go to a private window. So let's just go here for a minute. I'll go to the home page. So it doesn't know who I am. So I go to my cart and it says my cart's empty. But if I log in with my Google account, hopefully this will let me in. Oh, I think because I'm in a private window, it's not going to pass my ID. That might be the issue. Oh, okay. So I'm logged in. So different browser. That's bizarre. I figured my cart would still be here. Okay, we may have a little bit of an issue here. I'm surprised. That's interesting. It didn't recognize my Google login. I think it's because I'm in a private window. So it's not tracking. Well, I can't. Yeah. Sure, I'll try it in Firefox without being private. Good idea. Right. So the privacy messes with storing it in the session.
Automatically, in private, it doesn't recognize you as a.
Yeah, it's the privacy. That was the issue I had earlier. Okay, good to know. All right, I don't want to move too far ahead because I want to keep our classes kind of similar. So I think what we'll do, I'm going to put this up on GitHub where we can wrap up early for today. Okay. So next week, where we're going to start is here. We want to build that checkout page. I may send you some instructions. I'm going to have to look, just keep an eye on your email. What I may ask you to do, I'm going to, once I kind of figure out exactly which way I want to do the payment, I may ask you to set up a Sandbox account with PayPal or Stripe before next week's class so you can generate the API keys and have that set up. That way we don't have to take time in class to do it if everybody has that account set up ahead of time. So I'm going to look at that. So we're going to build checkout. So checkout is going to go to a page that requires authentication. So if you're not logged in, you're going to have to sign up or log in at this point to go to the checkout page. And if we look in our orders table, actually, if we can see it in Visual Studio a little easier, we're going to need to generate a checkout page that's based on this form, based on this model. So we'll use scaffolding to generate a view based on the create template for order. So that way it'll automatically generate some of these fields. We're going to have to customize it. and then we'll hopefully get payment integrated. And then we want to move the data. Once the user pays, we want to copy the albums to generate an order, copy the items from here to the order details, and then we delete them from the cart table. So we're moving that order, those albums out of cart and into order details. That's what we want to do. They only will stay here if the user doesn't complete their transaction and doesn't buy. Okay. So we'll do that next week. If it goes into the following week to try and get payment integrated, no problem. Doing the checkout is something we should be able to do, I would think, in a reasonable amount of time next week. Okay. As I said, if you want to see the Ajax solution for the add to cart without a full refresh, you can find that in the Microsoft tutorial. It's also, I think, in my repository from last semester. I think I did it in one of the sections if you want to see it. Okay, any questions from anybody before we finish for today? Okay, so I will just add and commit.